All right, let's get started. Good afternoon. Welcome to this month's Research Matters. I'm Erica Salzik, the Department Administrator for UT Southwestern's Human Research Protection Program, and I will be one of the moderators for today's session. I'm going to go over some housekeeping items real quick. So first, if you have any questions for our presenters, please type them in the Q&A. One of the moderators will respond to you during the session, or we will address it at the end of the presentation. This session is recorded and will be available immediately after the conclusion of the live session by clicking on the Microsoft Teams live link in the Outlook appointment. We will send the slides and handouts out via the listserv, and you will also be able to access all the slides and recordings on HRPP's Research Matters website, which can be found under the Training and Resources page. We do provide a certificate of attendance for those who have logged in using a valid email address. If you do not receive one via email but should have, please send an email to hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu to request the certificate. And finally, we want to hear from you. We are interested to know what topics you would like us to cover during these sessions, how did our speakers do, and how our office is doing. So if you can take a few minutes to complete the survey and provide your feedback, we would greatly appreciate it. You can access the survey using your phone via the QR code or your computer by selecting the link. I'll also be dropping a link for the survey in the Q&A in just a moment. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. Today we have some IRB updates from Mayed Bird. Next, we will have Rasija Nambiar and Raj Varadarajan from the Regulatory Support Office, continuing on with part 5 of the 6-part mini-series of the FDA IND IDE regulatory process. And today's presentation will cover how to submit annual reports to the FDA. And our featured topic will be presented by Eric Solis. He is going to cover regulations for reporting unanticipated problems, regulatory definitions of an adverse event and EPERSOS, and reporting requirements for both types of events. And as usual, we will conclude with our open Q&A session. I'm going to turn it over to Man.
Thank you, Erica. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's see if I can get my slides up. And it's not that something is being shared in live event right now. Yes. Sorry, 1 second here. Okay. So today I'm going to just cover a few of the IRB updates. So first off, I wanted to just provide a quick update on our backlog. So we've hired the support staff to assist in the review of items that have been backlogged. The support staff started back on June 22nd, and they're working through, obviously, the backlogged item. I'll note that for modifications, we've gotten all of the reviews complete up until the month of June. So we're now starting on modifications that were submitted in the month of June forward. For new studies that are expedited and exempt studies, where we've actually got the queue up to the review of submissions that were received from the month of May forward. I also want to note during this time, we are going to be processing full board items very quickly, and they're going to be scheduled for upcoming IRB meetings. So you may be contacted by the IRB analyst to work through any type of submission issues. So please be courteous and respond to those in a timely fashion so that we can get the backlog of full board items also cleared out and scheduled for IRB meetings. I also urge you to communicate with me personally if you have some items that are urgent requests or deadlines, things that you need approved fairly quickly. Just continue to reach out to me. We'll move those items to the top of the queue and get those processed. Next, we've got this topic has come up. We wanted to use the support staff as an opportunity to look at the office and make sure that we've got the appropriate resources aligned with the types of reviews or submissions that we receive. So we have undergone a restructuring of the IRB office. So as you recall, our current staff structure is we've got a pre-review team that consists of IRB analysts, and these analysts pre-review all items, regardless of whether they're full board or expedited. They pre-review everything, and then the pre-review team sends items off to the next level of review. And so they either go to the full board, and so they're handled by meeting managers, or they go off to expedited reviewers. The expedited reviewers and the meeting managers happen to be the same individuals. So when items were sent over to expedited review, they would kind of go into a queue for the expedited reviewers, all while the meeting managers are still kind of handling the same workload. And then obviously we've got an investigator relations team, and then as a single IRB review team that reviews submissions, and where we're relying on external IRBs. So that's kind of the current makeup of the office for the IRB. With the idea of restructuring, again, what I did was we took the backlog, the number of submissions, and what we tried to do was identify where the workload was really heavy. And so what you'll see now, and what I'll cover now, is kind of the new structure of the IRB office. So we're going to actually have an expedited review team that consists of expedited reviewers and expedited pre-reviewers. This team will also pre-review submissions where we serve as the IRB of record, in addition to studies where we are relying on an external IRB. So, and we will also have a full board team where the meeting managers are there to manage the meetings, and we will have full board pre-reviewers. We will also continue to have the investigator relations team, and then I'll have a team devoted to special projects. So obviously we've got the IRB redesign as a big special project that's coming up. We're going to need lots of training materials. So that's one of those special projects that's going to be handled by this team. So again, the hope is that the new structure will align with the heavy workload on the expedited review side. And so we're going to try this out. The restructure will be in full place by the end of this month. So that's the restructure of our office. Next update I have is regarding eIRB. So at this point in time, we've got some developments that have been made in the new eIRB system that are going to be undergoing validation by our office within the next week or so. We expect to have all validation completed by the fall. And at that time, we will likely be reaching out to the research community to ask for assistance with user acceptability testing. And we're hopeful that that's going to occur by the end of the calendar year. Next update, I wanted to mention to you all that this week we're working through employee appreciation activities. So on Friday, our office will be out of the office working through employee appreciation activities. In addition, we've got virtual open office hours. So you probably noticed that yesterday we didn't have, or today we didn't have open office hours, but we will have open office hours tomorrow, July 19th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We will not have the open office hours on Thursday. So again, we've changed the schedule for just this week. We will resume normal open office hours on the week of July 24th, which is next week. The next update is regarding clinical research training. This is just a note to share with you all that the clinical research training has been uploaded to the HRPP website. You access the information, you can go into the clinical research training, and there are several modules that you can access on the website. The next update is regarding the NIH data sharing. The HRPP has drafted a tip sheet that will be posted to the HRPP website. And it really is just to kind of help investigators understand what the requirements are, understand kind of, what part of the application you're updating, talks about continuing review, status checks on data sharing activities. So that tip sheet will be available on our website probably within the next week or so. In addition to that, we've made updates to the informed consent templates to incorporate data sharing language. That also will be posted when the tip sheet is posted on our website. And that is all that I have for you today. With that, I will turn things over to Raj.
Thank you, Mayat. Let me share my screen. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, the Regulatory Support Office, RSO team, is excited to continue our 6-part mini-series on the FDA IND/IDE regulatory process. We appreciate your continued interest and participation in these informative sessions. In our previous sessions, we covered topics such as preparation and initial IND/IDE submission process, modification to IND/IDE, and safety reporting. Today, we will focus on an essential aspect of the regulatory journey, that is the IND/IDE annual reporting. The purpose of the annual report is to ensure that the FDA remains informed about the ongoing progress of the study, any significant developments, and any modifications made to the investigational drug, device, or study protocol. I'll be covering the steps involved in the preparation and submission of an IND annual report to the FDA, and Raj will be covering the IDE portion. As discussed previously, this is the IND lifecycle, and throughout these mini-series, we will talk about each of these steps in detail. We covered step 1, 2, and 3, as well as portion of step 4, about safety reports in our recent research matters, which you can watch the recorded video that is available on our website. Our today's focus is on step 4, annual report as part of the IND maintenance period. This is a quick summary of step 4, which I'll explain in detail in the next few slides. So let's first review the required documents for the IND annual report. As you see here, along with the cover letter, Form 1571 and annual report, there may be some other documents like Form 1572, 3674, approval letters for approved protocols, and consent forms, etc., that may be included as applicable. Form 1571 is expected to be sent along with each annual report submission. The templates for the forms and cover letter are provided here on the slide. The information expected to be included in an IND application annual report is listed here, as you can see on the right side of the screen as different colored sections, which I'll go through one by one. So the first one is individual study information. This should include a brief summary of the status of each study in progress and each study completed during the previous year. If multiple studies are involved under one IND, you need to use this table as seen here for listing each study and duplicate the template sections for each one of them. The summary is expected to include the following information for each study. The first information is the title of the study with appropriate study identifier such as the protocol number, its purpose, a brief statement identifying the patient population, and a statement as to whether the study is completed. Second, the total number of subjects initially planned for inclusion in the study, the number entered into the study up to date, and tabulated by age group, gender, and race, the number of participants who completed the study, and the number who dropped out of the study for any reason. You can see some examples of tables shown here on the slide that might be appropriate for your study. Please use it if appropriate or change it to suit your needs. There should also be some verbiage summarizing these things. Next information to be included is a brief description of any available study results. Then the next section in the annual report is the study information. This is the information obtained during the previous year's clinical and non-clinical investigations conducted under the IND application, including a narrative or tabular summary as seen here, showing the most frequent and most serious adverse experiences by the body system. A summary of all IND safety reports submitted during the past year, then a list of subjects who died during participation in the investigation with the cause of death for each subject. A list of subjects who dropped out during the course of the investigation in association with any adverse experience and whether or not thought to be drug-related. In other words, subjects who withdrew from the study because of intolerable side effects. Then a brief description of what, if anything, was obtained that is pertinent to an understanding of the drug's actions, including, for example, information about dose response, bioavailability, or relevant information from controlled trials. A list of the preclinical studies, including animal studies, completed or in progress during the past year, and a summary of the major preclinical findings. A summary of any significant manufacturing or microbiological changes made during the past year. The third section to be included in this annual report is any update to the general investigational plan. So if there are any updates to this plan, you would include a description of the general investigational plan for the coming year to replace that was submitted 1 year earlier. The plan should also include the rationale for the drug or the research study, the indications to be studied, the general approach to be followed in evaluating the drug, the kinds of clinical trials to be included in the first year following the submission. If plans are not developed for the entire year, the sponsor should also indicate that. The estimated number of patients to be given the drug in those studies, and any risk of particular severity or seriousness anticipated on the basis of the toxicological data in animals or prior studies in humans with the drug or related drugs. The next section should include any update to the investigator's brochure. If the investigator's brochure has been revised, a description of the revision and a copy of the new brochure needs to be included. Investigator brochure or IB is not required for single-site research INDs. IBs are needed if multiple sites or multiple approved drugs are involved. For multiple sites, each site gets an IB. For multiple drugs, there are separate IBs for each drug. Next is significant protocol updates. This section should include a description of any significant phase 1 protocol modifications made during the previous year and not previously reported to the IND in a protocol amendment. Then, if there are any updates on foreign marketing developments, you would include a brief summary of significant foreign marketing developments with the drug during the past year, such as approval of marketing in any country or withdrawal or suspension from marketing in any country. This section usually applies to commercial sponsors. So if you are a sponsor investigator for the research IND, you should just state not applicable. The final section in this annual report is a log of outstanding business. If desired by the sponsor, a log of any outstanding business with the FDA with respect to the IND application for which the sponsor requests or expects a reply, comment, or meeting should be included. Now, I want to review the timeline for IND annual report. The IND application sponsors are expected to submit annual reports of the progress of the investigations conducted under their respective IND application within 60 days of the anniversary date that the application went into effect. An example of this is depicted on the slide here for your reference. So let's assume the initial submission date of an IND application is January 1st, 2023, and anniversary date would be January 1st, 2024. In this case, the IND annual report would typically be due within 60 days of the anniversary date. Therefore, the due date for the IND annual report in this example would be March 2nd, 2024. This means that the report must be submitted to the regulatory authority, example the FDA, by March 2nd, 2024, to comply with the reporting requirements. Once the study team puts together the annual report FDA submission package, you may contact our RSO team for review. Then, when review is complete, the next step is to submit the application package to the FDA. Just briefly to mention, the annual report for the investigational drug may be submitted either via CDER NextGen portal, whereas in case of biologics, annual report is submitted via email directed to an FDA receiving hub for the submissions, which is the CBER Document Control Center. Our RSO staff can also submit IND annual report to CDER or CBER on your behalf. This concludes my portion for the IND annual report submission. Thank you all for your time. I'll now pass it on to Raj to cover the ID annual report submission portion.
Thank you, Risija. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the IDE life cycle, which is almost identical to the IND life cycle, which encompasses various stages involved in the development and evaluation of investigational device. Here is a breakdown of, sorry, one slide is this. Yeah. This is the IDE life cycle, which is almost identical, and just like the annual reporting requirements for drugs, the annual reporting for devices through IDE takes place through the maintenance phase, step 4 of the IDE life cycle. The FDA expects the annual report, also known as the IDE progress report, to be submitted by the IDE approval anniversary date. Here is a breakdown of the maintenance routines and timelines for devices used under approved IDEs. Most of these are synchronized with the IRB. As I mentioned in the start of my talk, there are quite a few similarities you would see while organizing the IND annual report and the IDE progress report. In both, you include a sponsor or sponsor investigator signed cover letter, specific FDA form, the main report document, and any supporting materials. Now, let us see the contents in the main report. There are similarities in contents between the IDE progress report and the IND progress report. We do have a template for this main document with some guidelines for the sections and subsections. For instance, the contents in both IND and IDE reports include a general introduction to the study, device, procedure, etc., leading to the detailed story of how the study progressed during the annual period, plus the details of any amendments, adverse events, etc. One point of difference I wish to make here is by recalling an information from our previous presentation. This is regarding when the IRB approved IDE amendments can be submitted to the FDA. Unlike IND, IDE amendments could be deferred until the annual reporting time. As you know, now from Rasija's talk, the IND amendments to the FDA are submitted soon after the IRB approval is received. So what that means for the IDE progress report, it makes it mandatory that all the IDE amendments are included in the progress report. And in that context, the FDA is further interested in getting a comprehensive update, amendment by amendment, detailing study progression, the outcomes and risks encountered, and the administrative information and authority governing the institutional approval. Let us see the details of progress report content in the next set of slides. The report starts with the general information, typically covering the device name, its use, sponsor, contact details, and additional sites involved. The study progress outlines various study-related activities on subject enrollment, IRB approvals, and any completed aspects of the study, like what has been done for progress review for grants. In the succeeding sections of the report, most of the information is expanded. As a part of the progress to update the FDA, it's important to chronologically describe various amendments in the annual period. In reviewing such amendments, the agency would like to know under whose regulatory governance the study changes were approved and implemented, where the IRB information is critical. The FDA would update their files on the IRB information connected to each amendment signed off by the IRB since the initial IDE. Also, after the IDE approval, some studies add additional sites for which it is especially relevant for the FDA to understand their regulatory governance. Just for the investigator team awareness, I would like to share some message from a real-world experience. The task of including amendments in the progress report instead of at regular intervals may allow you to delay the submissions to buy some time, but occasionally it can cause some headache for the investigator team because the IRB approved study changes are immediately implemented and the study is currently in progress when the report is being submitted. But remember, when the FDA sees the changes for the first time, chances are they may differ from the IRB decision in one or more amendments. If that happens, depending on the difference, the agency may place the study on hold until they resolve the differences with the IRB. Such clinical holds could cause a delay if one sees the big picture. Although the FDA IRB disagreements are not often the case, I personally think it is prudent to submit each amendment to the FDA following the IRB approval and request the agency in each amendment cover letter a concurrence on the amendment and a feedback, possibly in 15 working days before implementing the study amendment. Routinely, the progress report should include updated IRB approval consent document. In addition, it will have the updated IRB protocol. Further, IRB details on the board members' contact are also provided here. As I mentioned before, if additional sites are involved, then a comprehensive information of the investigator team executing the study should be in progress report. Regarding the subjects, the high-level information on the subjects and study operation information should be included, which is included in the previous section, must be expanded into section 2.4, describing the sites involved, enrollment process, study conduct, follow-up, and data analysis. The details can be presented in a tabular form or in the Concept 2010 flowchart format. The summary of a device. The device information outlined in the previous study progress summary should be all expanded and consolidated to identify the number of devices, the distribution across different sites, and any device-related issues that were experienced. If there have been no device issues during the annual period, then it should be mentioned in the section. In the section 2.6, the high-level study outcomes information from the progress summary should be expanded. It will be in the form of a synoptical description of study results, highlighting outcomes, device use and specific application, performance, and any other details unraveled during the investigations. Adverse events is a key section the FDA would be critically looking at when reviewing the IDE progress report, particularly in Class 2 and Class 3 devices. All anticipated and unanticipated adverse events and serious adverse events are reported to the IRB and the FDA. And the monitoring and reporting process can vary. The adverse event monitoring can be done with or without the Data Safety Monitoring Board. If the study has a Data Safety Monitoring Board, then the board can report with multiple adverse events or combine multiple sites adverse events together. The process of adverse event reporting can be done as a single full report, or it can combine several individual reports if there are multiple adverse events. Deviations. Investigational plan deviations from the FDA approved version are not uncommon, but they could potentially affect the protocol due to known or unknown reasons. In the event of such protocol deviations, the details of deviations should be described to include the impact in the procedure or other components resulting in any protocol amendments for which a corrective and preventive action is needed. Further, any incidents of reportable protocol non-compliance activity must also be included in this section. Risk analysis is solely a section for the Data Safety Monitoring Board, since the monitoring board also reviews risk analysis from adverse events before it is updated to the FDA since the last progress report. If there has been any new risk information on the procedure, device, or some other study component, then the Data Safety Monitoring Board completes the review of the adverse event or risk analysis before they provide an approval in this section for continuation. Often, such insights on risk can come from additional studies as well, from animal studies, clinical studies, which should also get integrated into the investigational plan. The agency is eager to review such information in detail from the publications resulting from the study investigations, DSMB reports, or any other relevant literature associated with the risk of the device used under the IDE in question. If no Data Safety Monitoring Board is involved, then this section can be removed. Other changes can be a part of this effort in updating the FDA. When doing so, it is important to capture the details on whether any changes have been implemented in the manufacturing practices or quality parameters as a result of some study revelations. In doing so, it's important to describe if there are any changes made to the investigational plan as warranted by the study outcomes. If there are no changes to the manufacturing aspects or investigational plan report, then add a statement to indicate that there are no changes. When the FDA is reviewing the IDE progress report, they are interested in learning about where the study is headed to. As most of you would know, the IDE step for a device is more investigational in scope in terms of its use to a specific disease indication or procedure, which could lead to further developments in terms of wider use or expanding the device for other purposes. In gathering the study information, the FDA would also review a lot of details on the device, particularly its use and study outcomes, for them to be prepared to offer appropriate future guidance for sponsors' mission, depending on whether it's primed to progress towards commercialization, study expansion, or simply closing down the study due to some unfavorable outcomes or some other factors. The agency will certainly entertain any proposals or ideas for future emerging from the present through supplemental submission and discussion with the sponsors and sponsor investigators. Now we approach the last segment of the talk with the report submission. We covered the device-related submission process in part 2 of the mini-series, so we recommend you to please refer to the details provided in that presentation due to want of time. Please remember, the Regulatory Support Office can also provide assistance needed for you in the submission process, particularly for e-copy submission or preparing the report, etc. So contact us if the need arises. The next topic is the timeline. Please remember to file the IDE progress report with the FDA and IRB at regular intervals, but at least yearly one time by the anniversary date of the initial IDE approval. For example, if the IDE effective date is January 1st, 2023, then the anniversary date would be January 1st, 2024 for the first turning in the progress report. This anniversary date remains the same each year and serves as the deadline for submitting the report. And that brings us to the close of this part 5 of the mini-series, which we certainly believe is also something valuable and beneficial for your study needs. We would greatly appreciate if you please provide us a feedback for this presentation as well, highlighting the quality of content and presentation. This is critical to make any future improvements. If you have any questions, please feel to reach out via email and we'll respond promptly. Our next mini-series presentation, scheduled on August the 15th, will cover the concluding part of IND and IDE. We'll be very happy if you could please make the time to attend that one as well. And one last thing to remind you all, for archives of the Research Matters presentation, please access YouTube at UT Southwest HRPP or SI support site. And I wish to thank you all very much. Now I'll pass it on to the next speaker, Eric Solis. Hi, Eric.
Hi, thank you. All right, can you see my slides? I believe you can. Thank you, everyone. I will try to get through this as fast as I can. There's a lot for me to talk about. Thank you again, Raj. Again, I'm Eric Solis. I'm the IRB manager for the HRPP office, and we're going to talk about anticipated problems involving risks of subjects or others. So we're going to to start with the definition of anticipated problem, that's important. And then we're going to delve into kind of divide it down into an adverse event and what a non-adverse event is, and then get to your UPERSO definitions in the UADE, which is unanticipated device effects. And then I'm going to get into a little bit of tracking, then reporting of AEs and non-AEs, and UPERSOs and UADEs. And then I'm going to provide some examples, and then we might have some time for questions. Let's start. All right, so it's important to note that there are regulations that fall under both HHS and FDA for the reporting of unanticipated problems to the IRB. Each set of regulations require the reporting of such events, as well as regulations that outline an institution that must have written policies to ensure the reporting of unanticipated problems. FDA regulations have specific regulations that cover both IND regulations and IDE regulations that outline the reporting of unanticipated problems involving risk to subjects or others, as well as reporting of unanticipated device effects. So starting with what's an unanticipated problem. So in the conduct of research, there may arise types of incidents, experiences, and outcomes, and these obviously are unexpected. They may be related, they may not be related. They also, anticipated problems may or may not be adverse events. They also may involve an increase of harm to participants. And they, anticipated problems may also involve may not involve actual harm to participants. And we'll get to all this in the next slides. So what's an adverse event? So any untoward, my bad, I got to go back. So sorry, a little nervous here. HHS guidance issued in 2007 defined the term adverse event as any untoward or unfavorable medical occurrence in a human subject, including any abnormal sign, for example, abnormal physical exam or laboratory finding, symptom, or disease temporarily associated with the subject's participation in the research, whether or not considered related to the subject's participation in that research. Adverse events can be serious or non-serious. They can also encompass both physical and psychological harms. They occur most commonly in the context of biomedical research, although on occasion they can also occur in the context of social and behavioral research. OHRP defines serious as results in death, is life-threatening, or places the subject at immediate risk of death from the event as it has occurred, results in inpatient hospitalization or prolongation of existing hospitalization, results in a persistent or significant disability or incapacity, results in a congenital anomaly or birth defect, or based on appropriate medical judgment, may jeopardize the subject's health and may require medical or surgical intervention to prevent one of the other outcomes listed in this definition. Adverse events may also meet UPERSO criteria. So what's a non-adverse event? So these events can be related or unrelated. These events may also suggest that the research places subjects or others at a greater risk of psychological, economic, or social harm than was previously known or recognized. Non-adverse events are those that do not involve a reaction to a study drug, and they do not involve physical harm. Non-adverse events may also meet UPERSO criteria. So what are anticipated problems involving risk to subjects or others? OHRP and FDA require prompt reporting of UPERSOs to the IRB. Guidance was also issued by both OHRP and FDA to assist IRBs with effective and efficient review of anticipated events to help better protect subjects from avoidable harm, further assisting IRBs to differentiate between adverse events and unanticipated events. A UPERSO is an unexpected event that occurs in research that is definitely or probably related to participation in research that represents an increase of harm to subjects. A UPERSO may not always represent actual physical harm. Actual harm to a subject is not a prerequisite for required reporting. According to HRPP policy, unanticipated problems involving risk to subjects or others are incidents, experiences, outcomes that all meet 3 of the following criteria. They're unexpected in nature, frequency, or severity. They are probably or definitely related to participation in research. And it suggests that the research places subjects or others at a greater risk of harm than was previously known or recognized. OHRP recognizes that it may be difficult to determine whether a particular incident, experience, or outcome is unexpected and whether it is related or possibly related to participation in the research. OHRP notes that an incident, experience, or outcome that meets the 3 criteria above generally will warrant consideration of substantive changes in the research protocol or informed consent process or document or other corrective actions in order to protect the safety, welfare, and rights of human subjects or others. Another type of an anticipated problem are those that are associated with device research. These events are defined as an unanticipated adverse device effect. According to the FDA IDE regulations, the investigational device exemption or IDE regulations define an unanticipated adverse device effect, my apologies. For studies, investigators are required to submit a report of a UADE to the sponsor and the reviewing IRB. Sponsors must immediately conduct an evaluation of a UADE and must report the results of the evaluation to the FDA, all reviewing IRBs and participating investigators. So this Venn diagram illustrates the types of events. Group A are those considered to be adverse events that are not unanticipated. AEs that are unanticipated problems are Group B, and those that are unanticipated but are not adverse events are Group C. AEs that are not anticipated do not require prompt IRB reporting. These events are to be reported during your continuing review. Events in Group B and C are anticipated problems that require prompt reporting to the IRB. Group C indicates the reporting of unanticipated events that are not adverse events, and I will cover this in upcoming slides. So guidance issued in 2007 by the HHS included this flowchart, which can be used to determine whether an adverse event is an unanticipated problem that must be reported. Both researchers and the IRB have different responsibilities when an anticipated problem occurs. The researcher should provide information to the IRB per institutional policies for reporting, which outlines what and when to report to the IRB. The information provided by the researcher should include a summary of the event and should include reasons for what led to the event, the time when the researcher became aware of the event, and the corrective and preventative action plan in response to the event, which may include updating the protocol, consent form, and the investigator's brochure. The IRB will then in turn review the information provided by the researcher and consider the potential impact on the research and whether the unanticipated problem requires changes to the research to protect subjects. The IRB must assess whether the research can continue without changes or if a modification to the approved research is warranted to further protect subjects or others and inform them of the anticipated problem. Per regulation, subjects must be informed of newly identified risks and unanticipated problems so that they are provided the opportunity to continue participation or stop their participation in research. Some anticipated problems are addressed by updating the consent form and supporting research documentation, while others may result in the IRB suspending or even terminating a study based on the seriousness of the anticipated problem. The IRB must assess unanticipated problems involving risk to subjects or others for the assurance that risks continue to be minimized, benefits are maximized, and the risk to benefit ratio continues to be acceptable. So how do you track AEs and UPERSOs that your research participants experience and those that are reported to you from study sponsors? Best practice outlines the use of tracking logs to assist with the different events that can occur during a research study. The HRPP website contains a tracking log that you can use for this purpose and was created with you in mind. Use of this tracking log helps with knowing when an anticipated event requires prompt reporting to the IRB, as well as those that are events that are not anticipated that are to be reported at the time of continuing review. The tracking of these events also assists our researchers with our local data safety monitoring policy. Please note, since this tracking log is intended to assist you with keeping track of events. So I wanted to demonstrate how this would look like when you complete this tracking log for an event that per this tracking log meets the criteria for UPERSO. I indicate when the event occurred and the date the PI became aware of the event. This will assist you with reporting this event. I indicate what the event was here. I indicate that the participant experienced anaphylactic shock on June 1st of this year. The PI becomes aware of the event on June 21st. You'll see I noted this event was unexpected, was definitely or probably related, and suggested a greater risk of harm than was previously known. There was also a CAPA plan that, as the sponsor noted, the protocol IB and consent form would be updated. I then respond to whether this event is reportable, and since it does meet all criteria for UPERSO, I know I need to report this event within 5 days of the PI becoming aware, which you can see I did 4 business days after I informed the PI. Then I placed my initials to indicate my study team members that this event was taken care of and reported appropriately. Now let's move to the continuing review of SMART form. As mentioned throughout this presentation, AEs are to be reported at the time of continuing review. You will do this by responding to questions in the section 8 of the CR SMART form. These questions are intended for you to respond to inform the IRB that an event occurred, and continues to ask questions to elicit responses to inform the IRB that an event that occurred was unanticipated and related or not. Here you'll see an event occurred that was unanticipated but was not related to the research. This same section will also guide you to inform the IRB whether an unanticipated problem occurred and should have been reported promptly. Remember that the CR is intended to provide the IRB with sufficient information about what transpired and occurred during the approval period. Let's return to the event of anaphylactic shock in the previous slide. You'll need to answer the questions in section 8 so that all the questions here inform the IRB that this event was unanticipated, was at least probably related to the research, and that this event suggests a greater risk of harm than was previously known. This prompts the SMART form to ask whether you reported this event to the IRB. I can look back at my tracking log and note, yes, I did report this. The IRB will be able to determine this by opening the Reportable Events tab and seeing that this event was reported. So the prompt reporting is not only for anticipated problems that are AEs or non-AEs, this is also applicable to unanticipated device effects. All right, let's go into some examples. All right, so participant 899 experiences an event of cardiac arrest. The consent form, protocol, and investigator's brochure lists cardiac arrest as a risk of the study. The sponsor, industry, or sponsor investigator assesses that anaphylactic, that should be cardiac arrest. So I apologize for that, as related to the administration of the study drug. So this event is expected because it's in the study documentation, in the consent form, and the IB. It's related. So while this event is related to the study drug, we know it is expected. You would report this at the time of the next continuing review. All right, so participant 123 experiences an event of anaphylactic shock. The consent form, protocol, or investigator's brochure for drug XYZ does not list the risk of anaphylactic shock. The sponsor assesses that anaphylactic shock is definitely related to the administration of drug XYZ. It's unexpected because it's not listed in the consent form, protocol, or IB. It's definitely related, and it suggests that the research places subjects or others at a greater risk of harm than was previously known or recognized. You would promptly report this within 5 business days of the PI becoming aware of the event via an RE submission. And you would also ensure that the CR SMART form is consistent with this. All right, moving on. Clinical trial studying everything involves payment to participants for time and effort in study participation. An internal audit finds that 20 participants were never paid. Let's see. So this is unexpected because not paying participants is an unexpected event, as payment to participants is an expectation of study participation. It's definitely related to the research. And because this is a non-AU PERSO, again, this was not an adverse event as a result of a study drug. This event suggests that the research places subjects or others at a greater risk of harm that includes psychological or economic than was previously known or recognized. This event would need to be reported within 5 business days of the PI becoming aware of the event. It would be an RE submission, and again, the CR SMART form would need to be consistent with this. Excuse me. Moving on to our last example here. Clinical trial studying an investigational device that stimulates the vagus nerve to prevent focal or partial seizures in participants that do not respond to seizure medications. During the research procedure for participant, the device did not execute and in turn did not stimulate the vagus nerve, and the participant experiences a seizure. So this is unexpected. The device failed to execute, which is an unanticipated serious problem associated with the device. It's definitely related to the research, and it suggests that the research placed this subject at a greater risk of harm than was previously known or recognized. And this, an example, would also need to be reported within 5 business days of the PI becoming aware of the event, using the RE submission and ensuring the CR Smart Form is consistent with this. All right, so this reportable event guidance document is available on our website, and it's a great document to assist with helping determine whether the event you have received by the sponsor or one that occurred locally meets HRPP criteria for UPERSO. This is also available on the next slide. I just wanted to provide some resources here. So you see this is the QOR codes for reportable events guidance. I also have a link and the code for the AE and UPERSO tracking log. And I thought it might be important to also include the guidance documents that I referenced throughout this presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, yes, that was a lot of information there. We have a few moments left, so I'm just going to take a minute to see if there are any questions and give you time to type them up. So I'm just going to take a pause here. Okay, and while we do wait for you to get those typed up, I just want to remind you all of the survey. If you can just spend a few minutes to complete the questions, we will use the information to improve the content of these sessions and how we present them. And we will also be able to see what areas we need to work on in the office and what areas we are excelling in. I'm still not seeing any questions, but I do know that the topics we presented today may yield some questions later on, so feel free to reach out to the HRPP via email at hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu, and you're also welcome to attend one of our open office hours. This week there's one on Wednesday, and we will resume on Tuesday and Thursday starting next week. And yeah, so this is going to conclude our presentations for this session. I want to thank our presenters, Mayed, Raj, Rasija, and Eric, and thank you all for attending today's session. The next Research Matters session is scheduled for August 15th. Have a great rest of your week.